Mm-hmm. Yeah, our internet's down in the building.
You're kidding.
I'm talking to Tim right now, trying to get it going. It's our staff. Our public is up, so that everybody can use that one, but our staff wireless is down.
Oh, so you can still stream through the staff one?
Yep, I am right now.
Cool. You just stay so calm.
Things work themselves out. Mostly. Hello. Audio check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Audio check. Are you going to be running all over the place when things get started soon?
Am I going to be what?
Running all over the place when things get started?
Probably.
We're going to need to make sure that the door for this room is closed.
Okay. Is this loud?
If this one isn't closed, it's going to feed back into that room, which is going to cause a feedback.
Okay. Okay.
So.
All right. We'll let the volunteer know that too.
My oldest is 28. Everybody would have mind. I'm gonna go deliver this. So it doesn't matter what you go to?
Well, there's all different ones. The keynote speaker will be streamed through all rooms. But there's different topics in each room. This is one that focuses more on like teaching stuff. So we have the heroes, the driver. I've got Lowell Morgan and Jackie, and then we saved all seats just because we have so many people. So you can pick wherever you want. say repeat, read the top. She tried to put it on his lip balm. She was like, I'm sick. So there's one on this side. And what I'll be trying to do there, keep my attention, is I am very fidgety.
Right now, I walked in the middle of that.
You're good.
Oh, crap. I just hung up on Brenda. Hey, what's up?
Sarah's popping pills.
Okay, Morgan, can you give Brenda directions on how to get here? She's right there, she's on the belt line.
Where by the here?
Talk to her. Jackie, I have a seat. for you
Okay,
right next
hey,
to me.
let me.
So where are we?
Where are you by the
No,
Look
you
in your book.
can you might want to push your.
Oh, it's right behind Myers, honey. You gotta look on this sheet and figure out where you are. It's Brenda.
You're gonna want to come. You're gonna wanna come.
Okay,
This
so,
is like the only. These two rows are all ours. Yeah, well, Gary didn't know where everyone was sitting, so that's why he.
that's why there's coats everywhere. Jackie's not awake.
Jackie.
Yeah, she's here in the headlights right now.
Come here.
I'm here, sorry. Sarah and all the.
Tell her
Here.
to go to the KISD building. And just drive off.
Okay, here's.
I want you next to me.
Hi, buddy.
No.
Yeah, I just want to talk to you.
No,
How are you?
Honey, to play with.
Okay, where are you?
Jan has put on his lipstick. She's like,
Okay, we can. Well, we came in off of East Belgium and then we just go.
I think it's just nice to you, you'll be okay.
You can operate door.
So I'm okay. So you're okay if I eat my breakfast? I know she's so I want to make sure it's. She's fine, it's ready for me.
All right, so.
Yeah, you gotta turn around and head toward that highway. Yeah, it's so nice.
You get one. I get one. Okay. Come here, you just. No, they're not mine. I want Oh, I didn't even think to find this first. You get one. Don't ask what flavors.
No, whatever.
Yeah.
I got it, babe.
Poor Bee, she's completely lost.
I mean, it's going
Do you
on.
know how to get Where's
She's on the belt.
Okay.
I'm horrible at giving directions, so I handed the phone on. I'm like, here, talk to her, tell her how to get here. I didn't drive. No. I didn't drive, Yeah. This is usually green, so last year. So I sat on the floor back there, always really good for my kids.
Maybe you'll be sure you can. Hey.
How are you, dear? Sorry,
You know, he will do like little things like our neighbor has in Pablo. But it's like, it's that he gets his chemo, ready to get chemo stuff. So that's a real. Oh, it's just like that, it's this round. And it's, she has received it.
Yeah. Like an ink pen? I have a Sharpie, but I can get one.
Okay, yeah, I will find
A real pen. I know people have them out there.
So, I mean, it's just like.
Maybe she had stopped over next week.
No, now it's spring.
Next week.
Yeah.
Time sheet.
Well, and you know what, I don't know.
We didn't plan it.
We'll be sure.
Oh, I know. It's this one.
I've had so much insights.
Well, because, you know, I had, it was barely effective last year. We didn't fight it. So this year, I don't know what it is. And Steve, yeah, I mean, but still, it's wreaked havoc on my mind about having to fight. What I just the first year I haven't had to do anything because I've been 3 years, which is, yeah, most of the people at LDC had that. It's amazing how much pressure it takes off people at the insurance to take over. It does. Yeah. Well, and like you probably had, yeah, I know our ancillaries have. They could be. So, I'm still looking.
I got it done in an hour and a half.
Jen does. I think so 2 rooms. And then, yeah, I never knew I would. That's a real
He's doing this.
But it's a lead like Gail, credit, she knows who I am when she comes in.
I don't even have a session. I'm just in there. It's just like open, pass the work stuff. Session. So it's all Yep. I know.
You want to introduce you to the third partner of ours? This is Jesse Rogers. This is Tim Scott. I apologize. Thank you. We said you need to know you're one of us. So.
No, I really don't want to know them. I just want you to know that there's words that go, I know. I think we should just send me one more.
You can see the whole thing. See if you ever need to bring anybody, you got the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna drag Ron with me because I want to do some
We'll give us some warning.
Yeah, oh yeah.
How are you?
So yeah, I just did one run through to make sure they were all synced, but
Unless you don't want it, this one, yeah.
How are you?
Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. On behalf of the Kent Intermediate School District, we are happy to bring you the Lead, Empower, Assist Parents Conference. We're so happy to see you today. And my name is Barbara Corbin, and I want to give you a few announcements before we start our keynote. So you have in your bag this great green schedule that has all the information you will need for the day. On the front, it has a schedule at a glance. It has a map in it. It has the workshops, the descriptions of the workshops. There's also a web address in here for all the handouts for all the workshops. So if there was one you didn't get a chance to go to and you want those handouts, you can go to the website and get those, okay? Please visit our 19 exhibitors. We have some awesome exhibitors today. You'll see them around the outside, and they will be here till after lunch. We also are featuring a Genius Bar, and that is in the Pine Room, kind of all the way as when you walked in where you registered. And the Genius Bar will help you with technology, resources, and assistance, and any questions you might have. Maybe you're interested in a website or some technology for your child that may be helpful. They can help you there, okay? I want to invite you to leave or join a workshop as it fits your needs. Don't feel like, oh, I got here in the beginning and I have to stay the whole time. Just be respectful, and if you think you might not want to stay the whole time, maybe sit towards the back, okay? We have awesome prizes today. Oh my goodness, such awesome prizes. Every one of the exhibitors prize. Plus, we have many gift certificates that you might have seen the giant, funky looking beanbag chairs when you walked in. They are doing a drawing for one of those, the smaller one. So you need to do that drawing at their table. And you can customize the cover of it. It is very, very cool thing to have. So you'll need to sign up at their table for that prize. All the other prizes, as you registered, you have a name tag. If you are registered today, we have your name in the drawing. So check throughout the day. Probably about the last hour we will be done of the prizes, but you need to check because you will be excited. Prizes are the best. Lunch will be available at 11:35. The same place that you got your breakfast, okay? And we have coffee and tea throughout the day and water. I really want to thank all of our staff and volunteers, presenters and exhibitors. Everybody has such excitement about being able to provide this day for you. We also have some generous sponsors that help us provide this for you as well, and they are Family Tree Therapies, Kent County Health Department, Comprehensive Therapy, Family Hope Foundation, Mary Free Bed Rehabilitation Services, and Calvin College Rehabilitation Services. So when you're walking around, they all have tables. Say thank you to those folks because that was very generous of them to support this day. Being a parent of a special needs child is more than a full-time job, especially if you have limited resources and limited access to help. Special Parents Confidential is a podcast that talks about, that takes a we're all in this together approach to looking at issues and getting solid advice about the complex challenges of parenting a special needs child. Please welcome John Pellegrini, our speaker today. He is the host of the Special Parents Confidential podcast, and he's also an author of the blog. And John is going to be, after he speaks this morning, he's going to be joining us at the information table, which is where you walk in at the front of the building. And if you wanted to ask him some questions or find out more about what resources he has to offer or how to access his podcast, he's graciously agreed to stay for a while and talk to folks. So thank you so much, John, for agreeing to join us today.
So basically, it's a podcast about special parents and what we can do to help our kids. I started this podcast. I worked in radio for about 30 years. Is it on? Okay, fine. Yeah. Anyway, I started the podcast. I worked in radio for about 30 years. Some local radio stations that no longer exist. A lot of the industry just kind of had a bunch of layoffs, and I was one of them. And I've been doing various jobs here and there. I work at Trader Joe's right now as a crew member, so if you've gone in there, you may have seen me. Yeah, and so anyway, a number of my friends in radio know Dave and Jerry and Pre-Beer and Hot Wings and a few of the others. They all have podcasts, and so it was the big buzzword for the longest time, getting a podcast. I did commercial production though, which a podcast about that is just not going to be a thing. So, but at the same time, our son was having a lot of difficulties with social issues and progress and stuff. And so we started attending support groups for different issues. And I thought, you know what, these are great because we can talk to experts and find out, you know, what we can do about certain things. And I thought, well, there's a lot of people who can't attend support group meetings because, let's face it, we can't get babysitters when we have special needs kids. We can't get the time off. So I came up with a podcast for that because the audio podcast, I like the format better because it's kind of like an audio book in that you can just listen to it anytime you want, no matter what you're doing. You don't have to look at a video or read a book or things like that. It's all right there. So I just thought that was an interesting way to go. Other than that, I'm just the same as you guys. Basically, except that I have a recording studio in my basement. And then try this one.
Maybe a little bit.
Hello? Yeah. Oh, look a little better. Right here. Oh, look at that. Great. See, this is one of the things that I thought would happen today. So I came prepared to make all the mistakes I could possibly make. Sure. Okay, talk a little louder. Yeah. See, when I worked in radio, I wasn't used to talking in front of an audience. So this works really well. But anyway, so I got a bunch of interviews together, and I just started calling people and asking if they wanted to talk about various subjects. I've got episodes on starting your own support group, which Carol Lippert, who you may see her in here, she has the autism support group for parents. I did an episode with Dan Blau, who's here today as well, about legal issues for parents, organizing play dates, attention deficit disorder, spoke with a local medical doctor about that, assistive technology with Katie Segovia, who's also here, special education advocacy, parenting a child with autism, and social issues at school. I talked to my son's social worker, so that worked easier. Deafness and hearing impairment, special education. I spoke with Paula Lancaster, who is one of the professors of special education at Grand Valley State University. She teaches the teachers how to do that, and so she talks about what goes into that. We did some episodes on special education, special needs and spiritual needs, going to church and working through social issues that can come with that. School funding issues. I talked with a board member of my local school district and the issues that they have going on, which seem to be statewide. Spoke with the Friendship Circle, which is, I don't know if you know that group. They're out of Detroit area, and they have it's mostly autism, but they take all special needs kids. They have it's really cool. They have a mock city built to teach kids how to work in social interactions in different areas like grocery stores, banks, and retail stores and things like that. And they offer a bunch of different online support as well. I've got some really good information there. I spoke to them about that. We Connect Now is a group that's run by a disabled college student or other disabled college students to learn how to advocate for yourself when you're in college. Because I found out that when your kids go to college, you as a parent don't get to help them anymore. They're on their own. So this group exists to help kids navigate through college. Talk with Connie Raymakers of Evidence-Based Consultants about applied behavior analysis. Gigi's Playhouse, which is a neat little organization for kids with Down syndrome so they can socialize. What to do when schools say no, which happens a lot. Talk with Suzanne Wilcox, who's a local advocacy person. Understood.org, I spoke with a person from them. They're the new national website for people with dyslexia. There used to be a whole bunch of different ones. They all got together, and it's now known as Understood. Did an episode on health and wellness with Chris Buchek of the Kent County Health Department. More legal issues and IEPs. Vaccine safety, had an issue about that, and an episode on that one. And then I had it's kind of cool, I did an international episode. I spoke with an author from Canada. We talked about her son and what they go through in Canada with special education, especially these kids with disabilities. It's kind of fun. Then I interviewed Michigan's Lieutenant Governor Brian Kelly when he was going around on his listening tour. I don't know if any of you were able to be here last year when he was here. He met with parents and wanted to hear what we thought about special education in school districts, and he went all around the state. His daughter has autism, and so he's very concerned about special education in school. And I'm going to get into that in a minute here because he has a whole report that he just filed recently, 17 pages. I brought a few over here. And he's also going to be a guest in an upcoming episode because he wants to talk about what they learned and what they're trying to accomplish in making improvements in the way special education is done in the state. Talked about early intervention with Barbara Corbin, what your kids are going to go through when they're getting started in school. Talked with David Campbell, who's the superintendent of the Kalamazoo Regional Service Agency, which is more or less the Kalamazoo Intermediate School District. They got a ballot issue last year where voters elected to fund special education independently for the whole Kalamazoo regional school system. That was kind of cool, and this might be a way for other school districts in the future to consider funding. So that's a whole episode about that. Interviewed Mike Porath, who's the founder of The Mighty. I don't know if you know about that, but that's another new website blog where parents can contribute anything and other parents can read about life with kids with special needs. It's a very interesting website. Talk with Andrea Butkeveen of the Family Tree Therapies about sibling situations and what siblings with special needs kids are going through as well, because let's face it, they get their own challenges too, dealing with some of the stuff we have going on. And I talked with Michigan Supreme Court Justice Richard Bernstein, who's blind, and we talked about his life and what he had to overcome to get where he is today. It's a very interesting story. Talked with Aubrey Borma, who also works with Family Tree Therapies, and her brother has autism, so we talked about what her life was like. Spoke also with a local elementary school teacher who has dyslexia herself and how she was able to get through it and become a teacher. And the most recent episode is about death and grief, which I know is kind of a sad subject, but sometimes it does happen, and it's hard for kids with special needs to understand, what's going on with that. So we talked about that kind of stuff. And it's basically I just try to talk to everybody about anything that deals with special education. I don't stick with one subject. My son has multiple learning challenges. So I thought that, autism is great, Down syndrome, there's a whole bunch of information out there about the one subject, but then I thought, let's just throw it out and talk about special education and special needs in general. So, because I'm just interested in seeing what's going on out there. And hopefully some people will get some information about it. Some of the things that I've learned about, because I'm, like I say, I'm not an expert on any of this. I talk to people who know what they're doing. And, one of the things that I think is really important is making sure we get the right kind of diagnosis for the kids. The school district will tell you, we think your child has autism. If you have Down syndrome, that's fairly obvious. If your child is blind or deaf, that's fairly obvious. But, autism, for example, that's kind of an umbrella term. There's a whole bunch of different disorders with autism, and it can range from severe to almost impossible to detect. So that's why the one thing I've learned is that you really need to have a medical diagnosis from a specialist. Because, just like you wouldn't go to your family doctor for brain surgery, you really need to get a specialist because there's also a number of neurological disorders that mimic a lot of symptoms, but aren't the same thing. And if you don't understand that, you may not get the right therapies and things like that. So I prefer to, make sure you get a specialist. I know that can be expensive because a lot of it isn't covered by insurance and things like that, but it's kind of difficult to go on. We had to do that with our son. He's got a very rare disorder. I can tell you about it, but it would take 2 hours to explain it. And but we had to get an MRI done, and we had to go see neurologists all across the state until we finally got the right diagnosis for him. But and then the funny thing is now no one's heard of it. So getting the right therapy for him can be a challenge. So that's why, but it is important to know what's going on because like I say, his disorder mimics a number of things: cerebral palsy, autism, dyslexia, ADHD. But because it's not any of them, the traditional therapies don't always work. So that makes it a bit of a challenge. So that's why, getting the right kind of information as you go to the right resources, and that's a very key bit of information too, is you got to make sure you get the right information. The internet has a lot of great information, but a lot of it's nonsense. And I've found for myself that universities, hospitals that are associated with universities have a lot of really good research. They publish it free, you can download it. The FDA is another great site, believe it or not. Their stuff is not full of a bunch of medical jargon, you can actually understand it. They have articles on almost any subject you can think about. Of course, the Cleveland Clinic, just recognized places, University of Michigan Children's Hospital is another good source. Teaching hospitals tend to really have a lot of online library, and it's all free to download. So it makes it a lot easier to find the stuff that you're looking for and get credible advice. And, it's, when I talked with Paula Lancaster, for example, in episode number 10, she said that you want to look for what's called peer-reviewed evidence-based research. And what that means is the peer review process, let's say you're a research scientist and you've got this idea that a certain thing is going to help in this area. So you do a study, you get a group of participants in the study, you go through the usual steps, and then you publish your results on research publications or like the Journal of the American Medical Association or whatever. Then other researchers around the country who are paid to do this thing will pick up your evidence and they will try to replicate your findings. And then the idea of how this works is if your findings don't work, then they tell you and you go back and figure out what happened with your data. And they keep doing this. And then over and over, you finally get the right methods. And so it just makes a lot more sense to do it that way, you know, and that's the way it's supposed to work. And unfortunately, sometimes people who put a lot of effort into these things and then they decide, well, my evidence has to be right. And so that's when you find people who claim that there's a conspiracy against them and things like that. But it really does work. And the cool thing is it's all free. Paula said that none of these people are paid by corporations or anyone else to do this, so there's no outside influence. It's all done free of charge and it's supposed to work. And they do this worldwide too. Studies that come out of Europe or South America will get picked up in the United States and they'll try to check it out and make sure it's all working right. So that's kind of why I prefer to go to the teaching hospitals for the information, because they're the ones who are actually doing research and they keep on top of all the evidence that comes in. So that's a great place to go. For education, you know, one of the things that we always go through as parents is it gets really emotional and really upsetting. And what I've learned is you got to try and put yourself in the shoes of the educator, believe it or not. I mean, some teachers, yeah, they shouldn't be teaching, and some people shouldn't be in other jobs as well. But, you know, I do this because I'm the first one to make this mistake, which is you go in there with all these assumptions and all these, you know, they're just not caring about my kid, you know, and they're not doing it. But then you realize, okay, no, they do, they're on top of it. It's just, they have seen this so many times before that it's no longer something that they're going to be as concerned about, or at least it sounds like they're not being as concerned as we are when it comes to talking to us about what's going on with their kids. So we have to be careful about that. But it's interesting. I don't know if any of you have ever been to a Board of Education meeting. They're kind of hard to get to. They're in Lansing and they go on all the time. But the cool thing is they have a website where you can watch videos of the meetings. And one of the things that they do is they allow public commentary, where you get to go before them and make a little presentation and tell them about the issue you're concerned with. A lot of school administrators do that. But the thing is, what's surprising about it is they only give you 5 minutes to talk. That's it. And they put a great big red clock in front of you that counts down. In case you don't understand, you have 5 minutes. And no matter who you are, whether you're the governor, whether you're the lieutenant governor, whether you're a school principal, you get that 5 minutes and that's it. And then during that entire time, they don't look at you. They don't even acknowledge that you're there because they have 50 other people behind you who are waiting to speak too. So it's kind of hard, you know, and I try to think of, okay, the school administrator has to go, make a presentation, you get no response, you don't even know if what you said is going to make any impact. You have to drive all the way back, and you go back and you pick up your phone, you listen to your voicemail, you got 50 parents screaming at you, you don't care about my kids. So that's what I try to think about when I go into an IEP meeting, things like that, is just remember they're trying to help too. They may not be as concerned about it as I am, but it all comes along, and it all gets there eventually. And then, let's see, Lieutenant Governor Cowley. I'll have to say, I'm not interested in politics. I'm not a Republican, and I'm not a really good Democrat either. But we are really lucky that he is so concerned about special education. His daughter actually was confined in school, restraint and put in a restraining room, which really opened his eyes because she was 5 at the time. Yeah. And when he was here, he said, we are not allowed to treat our prisoners like that. Why can we treat our kids this way in school? So that was one of his big issues, and that's what led him to start doing all these around the state meetings to find out what's going on and see if his experience was isolated or if it was really a problem. And so he's come up with this report with a committee based on what he did. And the interesting thing is when he came here, he just sat at the table the way I am, but he didn't say a word. You know, he got up and made some opening remarks, about 5 minutes. Then he just sat down and he let all the parents talk, and it was an hour and a half. And anyone who wanted to come up and say something got to say something. And he wrote notes down. He had 2 other people who were also writing notes for him. And he asked some, clarification questions here and there, but otherwise he just let the parents talk and he just did the listening. And then they took all their notes and compiled them into this report, which is kind of cool. And some of the things that he's making recommendations on. It's a 17-page report. You can find it on his website. It's really eye-opening. You should get a copy of it and take a look. One of the things they're talking about, they want to make it a more comprehensive collection for public input and public comments on rule revisions. One of the things that concerned him was a couple of years ago when he started this, they were going to make all kinds of changes to the rules of special education. And he was concerned because they were going to do it in just one meeting without any public input. And not all of us can go to Lansing, take the time out of the workday and go there. So he stopped the meeting and said this is why he wanted to go around the state and listen to what parents had to say first. So now he's kind of taken over the whole thing, which is nice. He wants to increase the number of public hearings conducted and providing ample locations around the state for people to attend these meetings. He wants to extend the length of the public comment period, which would be nice. He wants to increase the number of awareness activities to let people know what's going on when rule changes do come up. He also wants to take proactive steps toward providing the best educational program to meet each child's unique needs rather than just an envelope situation. The task force believes that schools should be implementing evidence-based instructional practices. In addition, when students demonstrate lack of progress, the education system should be able to provide support to ensure student success. And, so he wants the schools to be able to customize rather than we're only going to do this or this or this. He wants to give the schools the ability to say, no, we have to combine a few things here to make this happen. Reach as an individual education plan should be, which is kind of cool. He wants to, of course, end restraint and seclusion in the schools and get rid of that process entirely. He wants to create a task force that will go around and monitor schools. This is interesting. We have a friend who used to be a special education teacher years ago, and she said, way back the state of Michigan and all states had teams of inspectors who would go to schools unannounced, to show up, walk right into the classroom, sit down and watch what's going on. Unfortunately, because of tax cuts, that stuff was limited. Well, the lieutenant governor wants to bring that back, and I think that's a great idea. He also is talking about more advocacy help for the IEP process and make it free of charge for people. He wants the IEP process to be less about technical jargon and things we don't understand and more about clear communication. And that's interesting because this report has a lot of technical jargon. It's not easy to get through, but But I think these are all great ideas. Now the thing about politics though is what we have to be careful about is making sure that we're voting. That is one thing I've really learned here because unfortunately, and this is not just a Republican or Democrat issue, this is across both parties, there's people out there who think that special education is a waste of money. And the problem is they're getting elected onto local school boards, state representatives, state senators. So I know the media likes to focus on Washington, it's all the president's fault or it's all Congress's fault, but it's really all the local government and the states that are making all these decisions. So we got to make sure, who's your state representative, who's your state senator, who's your local school board, what do they think about special education? And we got to make sure we vote, not just this year, but also in 2018 and the midterms, because that's when a lot more of those people get elected. It was kind of depressing. I don't know if you noticed, Grand Rapids had our mayoral election this last year. It's a city of about 250,000 people and a grand total of 20,000 people voted. Not just for one candidate, but for all candidates. Only 20,000 people voted. It's kind of depressing. We need to get out there and just find out, who are the elected officials locally and what do they think about special education? And if we don't like what they're thinking, let's get some people who do think the way we do. So, anyway, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act provides the federal government has to supply up to 40% of special education funding for each state. And the key words there are up to, because right now they're only supplying 17% of the total budget that we have for special education, which means 83% of it is controlled by the state. So again, that's why it's important. Who are we voting for and what are they doing with that money? So we got to make that a priority. And so that's, basically, what the podcast is. I'm just trying to get more episodes together. I don't do it full time. I don't make a living on this, obviously, working at Trader Joe's, so I kind of do them when I can. I've got ideas for more episodes coming up. And if you have any suggestions for ideas for episodes, let me know. I'll be up front at the information desk and we'll talk to you about it and see what you think about it. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Enjoy the day.